Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing another tier list video, and this is going to be a best civilizations overall in Age of Empires 2. And I've done a tier list like this 1 year ago. It was actually the first tier list I made on the channel. Got a lot of views, not likes. Who cares about those? Got a lot of views, and got a lot of attention. And so that was a great thing for my channel. And here I am about a year later, gonna be redoing it. There's been a lot of tournaments since then, a lot of updates, patches, and even a DLC since that video. So I think it's about time that I revisit this topic and show you guys my updated list of the best overall civs in the game. Now, before I start, let me just go ahead and make a couple of things clear. I will be doing this on a pro level, so pro player versus pro player, and it's going to be strictly 1v1. So it's going to be 1v1, pro player versus pro player. But what do I mean by overall civ? Overall civ means that it's going to be the best across different settings in terms of maps. So for example, there's like Arabia, so like open land maps, hideouts, arena for closed land maps. Then there's a lot of hybrid maps. There's gold in the center kind of maps like Gold Rush and Golden Hill, or Golden Pit, sorry. And then there's water maps, so like islands, team islands. So I'm going to be considering all of those different competitive styles, and I'm going to be ranking the civs on those, and then seeing which one does the best across all settings. So the S tier civs on my list are basically going to be civs that are excellent in multiple of those maps or multiple of those styles, and have very few weaknesses. And then the lowest civs, the F tier and the D tier on my list, are going to be civs that are completely terrible on most of those settings and only excel in one or two, or they're just average everywhere and nothing too special about them. So that's going to be the situation. Hopefully you guys will enjoy. Without further ado, let's hop into it. And I will address the Burgundians and the Sicilians at the end of the video. There's no icon, so it will be, imagine them here. We'll talk about them at the end. Okay, that's cool. Let me just make sure everything's good on OBS. Indeed it is. Let's hop into it. So the first civ is the Aztecs. Now, Aztecs is a civ. It excels on gold in the middle maps. It excels on land maps in general. It's pretty weak on pure water maps, but it's pretty solid on hybrid maps in general. So pretty well-rounded civ, good on closed land maps as well, like Arena, because of its monks. Has a good kit with the Eagles, the skirms late game. The champions are really, really strong, and a great economy to back it up. Seems like an easy A tier. I can't put Aztecs on S tier because they received a couple nerfs recently that hurt, how overpowered they were. They got a nerf to their production speed for the military and their eco bonus. So I think it's a pretty solid A tier from my experience with Aztecs. Next up, we have the Berbers. Now, Berbers, I'm going to look at my the side here. Berbers are a civ that are can be very explosive. They get the cheaper stable units. They have a great late game with the camel archers. They don't have the best early game, and as far as like hybrid map bonuses, you really need that early game bonus, early game eco bonus, because you need to afford like water fights plus land fights, and Berbers just don't provide that. So for that reason, I'm going to put Berbers at C tier. They have a good late game. They're pretty solid on some land maps. They're pretty bad on like pure water maps. I know they have the faster ships, but that's not really that good a bonus. And on hybrid maps, they're sometimes good, sometimes pretty bad. So I think it's a pretty easy C tier for me for the Berbers, and a lot of my civs will land in C tier, so that's not bad by any means. Next up, I have got another A tier civ in the Britons. Seems like a pretty easy choice to me. Britons are great on land maps, great on closed land maps and open land maps alike. Britons are also pretty solid on water. If you take a look at their water tech tree, something I realized for Hidden Cup, and that's why I played them a lot on Cup, they have a full navy tech tree. And they have a good eco to even get them there. So I'm not claiming that Britons are the best water map civ like islands, but on hybrid maps they are fantastic. Good early game eco with the sheeps, good mid game eco with the cheaper town centers, great land control with the extra range crossbows, and then a great water tech tree to play any kind of water fights in the late game. So Britons for me, easy A tier there. Next up we have the Bulgarians. Now, Bulgarians is an interesting one, and I showed how strong they can be on Arabia, counter-picking Aztecs twice in Hidden Cup. I think Doubt was a guy that likes to play them in general. We saw them come up in a couple Red Bulls by Winchester as well. So a lot of the pros are realizing how strong Bulgarians can really be at this, in this day. However, I gotta say they're kind of weak on most hybrid and most water maps. So that being said, I think you can only put them at a max of C or B. I put C on my notepad, but I'm actually thinking of how strong and how much play they've seen recently. I might be thinking of a B tier for them, but I'm gonna leave it at C because even on Arabia they have some bad matchups. So I'm not gonna overhype the civ just because I did well with it recently. It's a solid C tier for me. for the above reasons, or from the reasons I prior listed, basically. Next up, we have the Burmese. Now, Burmese are actually going to be rated quite high in my rankings, and it might be a shock to some people. But if you think about Burmese as a kit, they're great on most land maps. Not the best on Arabia, but good on closed land maps in general because of their monks, because they have a pretty solid amount of options in the late game. And they have a good eco bonus. Plus, they're not bad on hybrid maps. They get the wood eco bonus. They also get a bracer, so they can play water to some extent. They have pretty solid late game. So I'm going to put Burmese at C tier because they're strong on some maps and they're pretty versatile in as far as what they can offer. And I can see Burmese, on a hybrid map be pretty strong if we're seeing like a men at arm opening with the eco bonus and some water play to back it up, potentially. Following it up on the C tier, I'm going to do two at once. It's going to be Byzantine and Celts right away C tiers. So I'll talk about both at once. Basically, for Byzantine and for Celts, they're solid in certain areas, but then they have some clear weaknesses. Let's start with Byzantine. Their clear weaknesses are the fact that they don't have an early game eco bonus, but they have a great late game in terms of options. The cheaper imp helps a lot, and they have a wide open tech tree for both water and land in the late game. Plus their cheaper trash makes them really versatile in the early game. So an easy C tier for me, pretty good on a lot of maps, excels in certain cases, but not like too overpowered in any particular case. So pretty well-rounded civ there. And Celts is the same description, but for different reasons. Great early game eco bonus. They can play water and land at the same time. They have a really strong late game, but their late game is weak to certain compositions, like for example, like champions, cav archers, or just like mass ships in late game can be tough to deal with. So mass ships can be on hybrid maps or islands, for example. But as far as like land maps go, they're pretty solid in Arabia, pretty solid on a lot of land maps as well. So I think Celts is a good C tier civ for me. You could bump it to B tier, but honestly, I just feel like my B tier civs are all kind of more versatile than Celts in general, but the Celts, you can make a good argument for B tier. All right, next up we have the Chinese. So hopefully you guys are still keeping up with me here. I'm trying to go as fast as possible so I don't waste too much time. Chinese is an easy S tier. Like, this is probably the easiest decision I've made on this tier list. I mean, think about the recent tournaments. We've had Hidden Cup. They were pick or ban in the first phase of drafting pretty much every set. Every time they were played, I don't know if they have a 100% win rate, but they did really well when they were actually played and not banned out. They're fantastic on Arabia, fantastic on most open land maps. They can be really good on closed land maps in some cases too, only dying to like onagers and like arena, for example. But like something like Fortress with that weird start, Chinese becomes really strong. And as far as hybrid maps go, they're really good there too. They have that start that's a bit awkward, but once you get past that, they have a wide open tech tree and very good options. And then on maps that have like fish, like shore fish under TC, or a really easy way to get early food, Chinese are fantastic there. So like the best civ. So for me, and they're not even that bad on full water maps, although they're not the highest up on that list. So Chinese for me, easy S tier, very versatile, very strong, and great great in the hand of every pro player pretty much. Next up we have the Cumins. Now we're gonna enter the D tier with the Cumins. I thought long and hard about this, and I just couldn't justify putting them higher because they're so predictable. Like, only time you pick Cumins is to do 2TC boom. And on closed land maps where this is actually a good thing, it's super predictable. So then you get punished more often than not there. Not saying you'll lose for sure, but it's going to be a hard game. And then on open land maps, you don't really have the time to do 2TC boom. They have some stuff about them that are like super strong, like the Kipchucks, and it could be hard to deal with. And like their boom is strong, but I feel like when you consider them on most maps, they're not going to get value, and they suck on hybrid maps because people can just fish boom while you're stuck 2TC booming. It's not good. So yeah, overall, Cumins is a hard one to balance. I feel like if they got like a buff, they'd instantly be like super strong on land maps, but then if they got nerfed, which they did recently a little bit, they drop kind of a couple tiers on the list. So it's a hard civ to balance, but I think currently, and with considering all the maps, Cumins is a D tier for me. All right, next up we have Ethiopians. Going to be putting them straight in the C tier as well. And I know you guys are thinking like these are some solid civs in the C tier. And the C tier and B tier are kind of interchangeable. It comes down to opinion more than anything. But honestly, when you see the civs I have on B tier, you'll understand why Ethiopians, for example, is going to land in the C tier. It's very good on most hybrid maps and pretty good on land maps in general. But I feel like the thing about Ethiopians is that they're really one trick focused onto archers. And it's not like Britons that have the extra range so they don't die to skirmishers. Ethiopians do die to skirmishers like pretty hard. So for me, Ethiopians is just not exciting a civ enough to be placed elsewhere. Their eco bonus is good, but it kind of falls flat in the late or like in castle age. After that initial spike at feudal and castle, the imperial spike of 100 food, 100 gold is not that good. So you don't really care too much about that, and they don't have much else going for them in terms of eco bonus. So as far as Ethiopians go, it's a solid archer civ. It has its place. It's pretty strong on certain maps, but I wouldn't say it's like my first pick on any map, and they have a bad matchup against certain civs. So for that reason, C tier, although it's a very powerful civ, in certain cases, it's just not overall the best. Next up is Franks. Now, this might seem surprising as I put them in B tier. Franks are not S tier for sure. They're just not that great on hybrid maps. That's their biggest demise. But Franks do have some things going for them. They're great on land maps, pretty much every single land map they're really strong on. However, I didn't want to put them A tier because they kind of get counterpicked on certain land maps too. Like if you consider islands are no good, most hybrid maps are no good for Franks. So where are they good? On certain hybrid maps and on most land maps. But then even on most land maps, they can get counterpicked by, let's say, Mongols, by Huns. It's a terrible matchup for Franks, especially with the CA buff. Franks kind of die to CA in most cases. So I would say, Franks B tier, they're very powerful, but they have bad matchups on the maps they're good at, and they're bad on a lot of maps. So you could even make an argument for Franks C tier, as shady as that sounds. But yeah, that's kind of my assessment of Franks, and you can see that mirrored in the Hidden Cup pick ban phase. No one really prioritized Franks in the first few picks. It was more like mid-table picks. Certain maps in mind to counterpick certain civs on Arabia, for example, but they weren't like pick or ban in the first few phases. So it seems like an easy B tier for me. Okay, next up we have the Huns, which are gonna hold the phone. The Goths first. Okay. F tier to troll the casuals on YouTube comments. Just kidding. No. And no offense to you casuals. Goths is a great casual civ. Like we all liked it when we were beginner. Even I admit I love to kill my brothers Britons with Goths at times. But Goths are gonna be D tier, and the reason is they're just not great on a lot of maps. They're pretty meh on modern maps. They're okay in certain land maps, but only really to counter pick civs. Closed land maps, they're not the best either. Even though you think you get to boom and go for the Goth spam, they show up with like siege onagers, and it's just Goth is a civ that dies to a lot of composition. So it's too predictable, too one tricky, and for that reason D tier makes sense. It's not the worst because Goths is a civ that if you put it in your draft can be really strategic, counterpicking Britons and Mayans on certain maps, even though Britons can beat them on Arabia. So it's not the worst civ in that regard, but it just has too many bad matchups, too many bad maps for it that it's just can't justify putting it higher than D tier. Next up is the Huns. We're going to come back here, and it's a pretty easy B tier for the Huns. I can't justify putting it A tier just because I feel like it's not that strong a civ in a lot of cases. If you consider for example hybrid maps, Huns are good, yeah, but they have some bad matchups there, or some matchups where not bad matchups, but some matchups where they're not that favored. So you have to play out of the box with Huns a lot of cases, super aggressive, super map control oriented, and in that case they are very strong, but I don't know. This is maybe a personal opinion. As someone who loved Huns in the past, I have trouble playing them now, just because I don't feel like they're that powerful or that strong as they once were. However, they recently got a CA buff. Well, CA got a buff, so therefore Huns get an indirect buff, and they're definitely very strong. They have good matchups in Arabia, some bad matchups. They're pretty good on hybrid maps, not the best on islands, but playable. And then they're pretty bad on closed land maps. So overall, seems like B seems to be a good place to put them. If you think about the Hidden Cup drafts, just because it's a recent tournament, we saw them picked here and there. It wasn't prioritized. Sometimes they weren't even picked. And then if we saw them in Red Bull, it was like here or there, not that much, but it's a different setting, obviously. And even way back in NAC, although that's a long time ago at this point, they were picked here and there, and they, I think, overall underperformed. So again, there's been a lot of changes since then, but Hun seems like a B tier civ for me, and I've spent too much time talking about it already. Let's move on. Incas. I don't really know where to place Incas. I gotta be honest. I think it had to be a C tier because they're not good enough to be a B tier, and they're not bad enough for a D tier. So I would say they're a C tier, but they're a civ that doesn't really excite me that much. But I think this might be a personal thing as well. I don't know. I just feel like Incas don't really provide anything like too strong. They're good in certain situations. Like, for example, on hybrid maps, I don't see where I'd ever want Incas. Like, Incas just, they're not that good on any hybrid map. So we can rule that out. Islands, I would never really want Incas. You're predictable. If you go for an Inca rush, that doesn't work. Max lost to me in NAC with that strategy, and I wasn't even a great Islands player at that time, very inexperienced. So, not that I'm a great Islands player now or anything, but, it's just a strategy that doesn't work on Islands, period. And then on land maps, yeah, they're pretty good in certain cases. They're not like super strong in any case. They have some good matchups, some meh matchups, but no real bad matchup, which I think is the best thing that goes for it. And yeah, I mean, it seems like a very overall decent civ, and for that reason, C tier makes some sense. You could even make an argument for D tier, but I think it just has enough good things going for it that C tier makes some sense. Next up is Indians. It's gonna go to C tier. I have to say I made a mistake in the recent change to Indians about a couple months ago. I thought it was a nerf. Turns out it was a buff for 1v1. You get more. You get the free upgrades for armor basically on light cav and camels for castle and imp. So it's actually quite strong. The light cav is quite strong against archers. The camels are still pretty good for 1v1. You don't need that last pierce armor on the camels anyways that you lost for team games. Doesn't really matter that much for 1v1 is what I'm trying to say. And then Indians are just good on a lot of land maps, as you saw in Hidden Cup. Although that is a little bit of a bias because they did give a lot of shorefish on those maps. But that's another point I want to mention. Shorefish maps are becoming more and more popular. So I gotta take into consideration that there are maps that give shorefish or just fish in general, and Indians excel on those maps. So for that reason, Indians is a C tier civ. Pretty strong on most land maps, great on the shorefish maps. Pretty bad on pure water maps, but they're pretty good on hybrid maps, or decent, at least passable on hybrid maps. So yeah, it seems like a C tier civ for me. Pretty all around. Next up, we have Italians. I have to put Italians at B tier. And the reason for this is because they're great on water maps and they're pretty good on most hybrid maps. And I think that's enough for B tier to me. They're just so flexible on these hybrid maps, and they get bonuses at every stage of the game. They get faster up, they get some cheaper savings on the dock, cheaper savings on the university now, which is really good for their land play, and cheaper advancing to castle and imperial age, which gives you that mid-game spike. And if you used their power spikes properly, I feel like they're a really strong civ, and for that reason, they deserve a B tier. Despite being not the best on most land maps, they have enough going for them on water and hybrid to be put up there. And even Italians are not terrible on maps like Arena, for example, or closed maps. Although they're not the best, and they're pretty mid-table, but like I said, they're not terrible, so that's not bad. A little bit of string of water here. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the video. Hopefully you guys don't skip ahead to the end just to see my results, and hopefully you guys are still watching with me along here. Next up, we have the Japanese. Japanese, shout out to Spear of the Law, first of all. They're a civ that I gotta say, they've impressed me a lot recently. No changes has happened to them, but I've just played against them in certain settings, played with them in certain settings, and there's one bonus in particular that feels extremely hard to play against, and it's actually the fishing ship HP. Just that one bonus alone makes them so hard to defeat on hybrid maps because you can literally never snipe their fish. And if you want to try and full grush against Japanese, they have one of the best full grushes in the game. So I don't know. It feels like it's really hard to play against Japanese in a lot of cases. They're great on every hybrid map. They're pretty solid on islands. They're pretty good on land maps as well. They only struggle in certain land maps, and I mean they're not the best pick on Arabia, but still not too bad. So Japanese has just been impressing me overall, and for that reason, it's A tier. I couldn't quite put it S tier. I couldn't put, if you guys see the civs I have on S tier, I couldn't put Japanese up there. It's not happening. Although Japanese could make a pretty good, pretty good argument for S tier. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. But A tier, it seems like it's much more fitting there. Great civ overall. A lot of good matchups, a lot of good maps for it. And you're never really going to have Japanese and be like, damn, I lost. Like the worst setting for Japanese is probably like those closed land maps, and even then they have great monks and great Halb siege plays, so not bad there either. Next up we have the Khmer. Khmer is an interesting one, and Khmer is one that underwent a few changes in the past year actually, so let me think. As far as land maps go, it's very solid. I mean, pretty good on open land maps, really good on closed land maps, especially like hideouts. It was really popular, not bad on arena, for example. Water maps, pretty bad. But hybrid maps, hey, that's not bad either. The house bonus is really flexible. The farm bonus is always going to play in if you can't get like a lot of fishing ships going. And they have a really good early game where they can just make a dock and then save the wood on the barracks and just go straight for a stable or a range. So Khmer are pretty good on hybrid maps for that reason as well. And then their late game is solid. Hussar fully upgraded, or Cavalier. You have Halbs that are decent. You have Arbalests that are fully upgraded minus Thumb Ring and Last Armor, I believe. Last Armor, I'm not 100% sure. And then you have a Great Siege. Missing Bomber Cannon makes them a little bit less flexible. But if you ask me, Khmer definitely deserve a B tier result. They're good on enough maps. So B tier makes sense for Khmer. If I put them in C tier, they just look like they're better than almost all of these civs on a lot of settings. So I couldn't put them C tier for that reason. All right, next up is Koreans. This is an interesting one because this is, I think, a civ that's underrated at the moment. I got to talk about this one. I think it's underrated because when I look at what the civ has to offer, the free armor upgrades is really strong. And I feel like it's not being used to its full potential. And I'll be the first to admit that I don't use it to its full potential. Wagons are extremely strong in a lot of cases and hard to deal with. Their ability to boom while making army because of their cheaper wood units is very good. They're great on hybrid maps because they get cheaper wood units and they get cheaper like on land and cheaper wood units on water. So like archers and ships both getting discounted. They have great siege in the late game, great tower control in the late game. It's just so hard to place the civ. It's lacking an early game eco bonus. But stone mining and the cheaper wood is good, but it's like you need to be doing a certain thing for that to kick in. So they're not like the most like strong turbo civ in terms of development and economy, but they have so many strong options and they're pretty flexible on a lot of these maps. Arabia, they're not the best. Closed land maps, they can be pretty good. Arabia, they're not bad either though. I think I'm gonna put them at B tier. I have it written C tier on the side, but I think I'm gonna bump them to B tier. They have really good matchups versus archer civs because they get the free armor on their skirms, which is really good, and they have a lot of bonuses, like a lot of bonuses in and around. So Koreans feel pretty solid to me. Their one weakness I would say is that their late game they don't get Hussar. That's just so biased because I'm like the Hussar guy, but they don't get Hussar that are very good at all. Hussar are kind of bad. And then they don't really have any great siege to be able to push with besides onagers. Like they have Trebs and cap rams, bomber cannons, but missing like the composition is going to be like Halb cap ram or Arbalest cap ram, and it's not great to push with. So you're going to be doing a lot of like the campiness stuff, and that's not bad. But if in maps that get open, you get raided a lot. So yeah, like I think their biggest weakness is like the mobility. But then again, they have wagons that play in there somewhere for the mobility. So yeah, I don't know. B tier for Koreans, underrated and not figured out completely for me personally. Would be interesting to see if other pros agree or disagree with me there though. Doesn't have to be pros, could be anyone. Let me know in the comments what you think about Koreans actually. Okay, next up is going to be Lithuanians. Lithuanians have just not impressed me recently. I mean, if you take a look at Hidden Cup, they're very rarely picked. So I think it's going to be an F tier. Just kidding, it's actually the complete opposite. It's going to be the S tier. I mean, if you think about the lie I just told, that's incorrect. They were picked or banned in most sets in Hidden Cup. If you take a look at Red Bull, they were like prioritized pretty highly. I can't remember if it's the last one, maybe the one before. Prioritized pretty highly. But again, that's Empire Wars. It's a bit different. If you take a look at NEC or KOTD, they were prioritized pretty highly. Maybe a bit overrated in King of the Desert, but still great on hybrid maps. Probably the best hybrid map civ out there right now. I don't know if there's any better than Lithuanians actually. on hybrid maps. And why is that the case? The free 150 food at the start is fantastic. Then they have faster skirms that counters pretty much all archer civs. And then on top of that, they have great cavalry play and a great late game with halbs, skirms that move faster and get extra armor. The paladin that can get scale with relics, fully upgraded hussar in case you run out of gold. I mean, the civ just has endless possibilities. I think you get bomber tower, don't quote me. You definitely get bombard cannon, you get hand cannons. There's just so many options in the late game. So you get like the early game spike, that mid game skirm knight composition that does really well, and then the late game powerhouse. S tier on most hybrid maps by far. As far as land maps go, they're pretty solid in Arabia, pretty solid on closed land maps. Where is this civ bad? Maybe pure water maps, but I mean, even that, they're not that bad if you consider like a landing or something with the free food at the start. So Lithuanians are insane. S tier for me. They're not like the best civ on Arabia, but they're the best civ on so many other maps that they gotta be up there. All right, next up we have the Magyars. Now Magyars, I love the civ, but it just kind of falls flat in a lot of cases. It has a great late game, a pretty solid early game, but it has no eco bonus in the early game besides saving on scouts and getting the free foraging, which is, again, very specific to military. It has no eco bonus, so it sucks on hybrid maps. Like, just the reality of it. It sucks on hybrid maps. It's not the best on Arabia, not the best on closed land maps. It's pretty bad on islands, or really bad on islands, truthfully. So it's just bad across the board. The only thing it does well is that it has a great late game, and its mid game is pretty decent, and its early game, or as far as military goes, and its early game is pretty good as far as military goes as well. So pretty aggressive civ. I can see it working in some players' hands. Like Vivi likes the civ, but then again, like I haven't really seen Vivi putting out impressive numbers with Magyars, just winning the odd game or two here. So yeah, D tier for me, not impressive. All right, next up is Malay, and that's going to go straight into the B tier, and I don't think there's much argument here, actually. So, great on hybrid maps, pretty solid. I would say even great on island maps, even on pure water maps. Great on closed land maps as well. They have a great boom, good options, good early Imperial spike. Pretty passable on Arabia. They're not the worst Arabia civ ever. And yeah, pretty easy B tier. Nothing much to say about them, to be honest. Good late game with the trash. Elephants play a role sometimes. Yeah. Their start is like maybe a little bit awkward, the early feudal age, but I think the civ has been figured out by now, and I think it's hard to punish even that early game with Malay on most cases. So easy B tier there for me. Next up, we got the Malians, and the Malians are going to be another interesting one. They're going to go to B tier as well, and I think this is pretty straightforward. I mean, they're just really good on hybrid maps. They're not quite as good as Japanese, though, just because I feel like the Japanese bonuses are a little bit stronger than Malians, but Malians have good cav options. They have really good water plus land play because they're saving a lot on their wood buildings, and that's a huge bonus for them. And then they also get gold mining for free, which saves you a little bit there. So their archer plus ship play in hybrid maps is actually really good. And then their late game is pretty solid. Plus they have the flexible option of the Champ Scarls. And then the Gebero plus Siege Onagers, as far as like some late game shenanigans, can be pretty solid. So yeah, Malian seems pretty good B tier there for me. I don't think anyone can really argue too much there. Maybe I'm wrong. All right, next up is the Mayans. I will say, though, I don't really like Malians. That's a personal thing. But still, I recognize that they're B tier. Next up is the Mayans, and that's going to be an easy A tier for me. Reason is they're just great on Arabia, on land maps in general. They're pretty solid on closed land maps, too. They're not bad there. Great on hybrid. Yeah, why not? They're good on hybrid. They have good archers. They have good navy, or like decent navy, I guess. Yeah, pretty good navy actually. And then they have Sidram, which is definitely a solid option. And then they have eagles as well. So if there's a lot of gold in the center, for example, or just a lot of gold on maps, mines becomes quite powerful. And their new skirmishers makes them, their skirmishers makes their late game a little bit better. It's not overpowered or anything. I think the skirm tech is like decent at best. But it's the kind of thing that it made them a little bit stronger in something that we see every game. Like skirmishers, every late game has skirmishers pretty much for Mayans. So, it's the tech that buffs them pretty much every single late game. So I think for all those reasons, A tier seems solid for me. Not quite S tier because they're just not the best Arabia civ anymore as they once were maybe. They died to Vikings and Chinese consistently, I believe. And they even can struggle against Britons and maybe a 60-40 matchup versus Aztecs. And then, as you can see, I got Knight Siege pushed by Berbers from the Viper in game 1. So they could die. They're not like a easy, smooth playing Civ on Arabia even. They could die to some strong pushes and some good play. And Franks even have a good matchup versus them on Arabia, following the same thing that Viper did with Berbers. Franks did a little bit better, I think. And yeah, A tier for Mayans. All right, next up we have Mongols, and this is an interesting one. I'm going to put them at B tier, but I have to talk a lot about Mongols because it's a civ that actually was picked often. It's very popular, but it seems to be underperforming in Hidden Cup. But then I consider like other tournaments in the past, like in the past year, and every time there's like hybrid maps or anything of the sorts, Mongols becomes very strong. And like if you just take Bay for Hidden Cup 4, the T90 and the guys there, the organizers, they had to like remove stone, put the stone forward. They had to like less hunt on the map. They had to like do 3 things to nerf Mongols, and then Mongols were still popular and still picked there. And maybe not the best civ, but definitely not that bad. As far as total civs go. So on hybrid maps, Hidden Cup 3 saw Mongols on Bay very consistently, very dominant. So on hybrid maps with a lot of hunt or some early game water fights, Mongols are very strong. And they're not the worst on Arabia. They're pretty decent on Arabia. If you can get a good layman, they're not that bad. And then as far as their late game goes, it's really good. They're not the best on closed land maps though, because I feel like in a lot of cases you don't get to your late game. But Mongols overall, I would say, are very, very strong and just flexible in general. And they're easy to play because you get like the early game scouting bonus. So it's easy to play, flexible, solid pick. So B tier for me. Again, despite underperforming in Hidden Cup 4. Okay, Persians. Where am I putting the civ? Yeah, okay, C tier. Hybrid maps, they're pretty good on. Islands are not that good on. Arabia, they're not that good on. Closed maps, not that good. So really only decent on hybrid maps, but I wouldn't say they're like terrible on other maps really. So it just seems like a civ that's, if you don't know what else to pick, Persians are not that bad for a hybrid map. And it's a civ that can get you like a lot of outplay potential as well, because you have like the higher HP docks, so you can play a lot of shenanigans there, and they have a pretty good, castle age control of a lot of games as well. So I don't know. I think Persians are pretty cool. C tier for me. Not too special, not too bad. Portuguese, the Vitória Legends. Okay, Jordan will agree that this is going to be the best water civ. And there's no way a civ like Portuguese can lose to a civ like Vietnamese. You can't lose water against Vietnamese if you have Portuguese. I mean, you have too many bonuses. You have like the ship HP. You got the cheaper gold for ships. You also get that late game caravel that comes in pretty clutch. You get the extra pierce armor on the ships as well from the unique tech. So Portuguese are just overall really strong on water maps, and even on hybrid maps they're quite strong. But what makes them, in my opinion, a solid civ overall on those maps is the Vitória. Vitória makes them like super strong on islands. Maybe Italians, if you take away Vitória, Italians might be better than Portuguese. But with the idea or with the option of having Vitória, which I don't think is even fully discovered yet, it's so obnoxious to play against Portuguese, because as soon as you run out of momentum and you can't push, they win. They always will win late game on water maps. So yeah, for that reason, B tier. And then even on land maps, they're not the worst. They have some pretty decent options there, and they play pretty well on closed land maps in some cases too. So definitely a B tier for me overall. Saracens is another interesting one. I think Saracens, they recently undertook a change, which I think is a nerf. It's hard to say. They got extra HP on their camels, but then they lost some of the firepower on their crossbows. Saracens before was a one-trick, fast castle, market abuse, like 3 range, forward siege, and kill your opponents. And that was why they were strong. Now they kind of nerfed that, so it's not that strong anymore, but they made them a little bit more balanced, giving more HP on camels. I don't know. Seems like a C tier civ to me. They perform pretty well on every single map, but not great on any map. Like, they're not the best on islands. They're pretty decent, though. Not the best on hybrid. Pretty decent, though. Not the best on Arabia. Passable. Closed land maps, nothing special, but nothing too bad. So just meh overall. And I think it lands the C tier. Next up, we got the Slavs. Slavs can be really strong on land maps. Gold Rush comes to mind as well. Although similar to Franks, Slavs do lose a little bit because CA got buffed a little bit. They now have some weird matchups, like Huns can be really strong into Slavs in some cases, especially when there's a lot of mobility happening. But just in general, Slavs are good on land maps. And even on hybrid maps, they're not like the worst civ ever, just because you are getting some decent bonuses in the early game with like not needing as many houses because you have like the military buildings coming down, and then you start farming and that eco bonus kicks in, and then the late game is solid. But you know, they're just not that special on hybrid maps. Especially the more you have to fish, basically the more fish there is in the map, the worse Slavs are, because you want to be farming with them. And yeah, it's a civ that sucks on islands. Pretty good on closed land maps though. Seems like an appropriate C tier for a lot of reasons here. Spanish sucks. Nothing much to say here. It's just the worst civ in so many cases. The only thing Spanish has is conquistadors, and then a good late game. But in a lot of cases, you die before you get to either of those. Before you get the conks, you're going to get pressured. And then if you can't do damage to conks, you're going to fall behind. And then before you get to the late game, there's so many stages where you can fall behind and die that the late game just doesn't cut it. And the late game isn't even like overpowered. It's really just a flexible late game. So I don't know. To me, Spanish seems like a civ that I wouldn't want in any case, in any scenario. Vivi is a guy that makes them work sometimes. On closed land maps, we could see some play with conquistadors, but it's just a civ that doesn't excite me very much. So personally, D tier. Tatars, C tier, kind of like, what can I compare them to? Kind of like Byzantines in a way, where they have a great late game. They have some decent options before that, some good power spikes, but nothing too insane before Castle Age kicks in. Like that free thumb ring is really the first bonus that Tatars is great for. The sheep bonus in the early game is not bad, but I think them losing the 2 sheep that they got at the start of Feudal Age made you actually have to farm like any other civ. You have to actually rely on farms before you can use pretty much just a few farms, get up a really fast castle because you get those extra 2 sheep, and then go straight for cow archers or crossbows. But now, not really possible. However, they're still really strong on maps like Gold Rush. They're pretty good on Arabia, pretty good on most land maps in general, but hybrid maps, nothing special, and islands, nothing special for them. So C tier seems appropriate. Teutons is another civ that's going to go to D tier. I compare Teutons kind of like, well, actually, they're not like anything else here. They have a great boom, they have a great late game, but unfortunately, they suck before that. So on maps like hybrid maps, they're completely bad because they get like farming bonus. But again, like Slavs, the more fish they have there, the worse they are. And unlike Slav, they don't have the mobility. Slavs get like knights that are quite strong, quite powerful to back up their farming bonus. But Teutons, they have strong knights, but not mobile knights. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. Losing the husbandry is lacking the husbandry is kind of whack for them in a lot of cases. But they're great on closed land maps, and that's why you could see them at C tier on some lists. But for me, even on closed land maps, they might not be even the best civ in some cases. So I think D tier seems appropriate. Arabia, nothing special. Islands, nothing special. Hybrid maps, nothing special. Only closed land maps. Yeah, not much happening there for Teutons. All right, next up we have the Turks, which are going to find a C tier finish here. This might be a little bit biased because they were popular in Bypass from the GL guys, but generally speaking, Turks have a good late game. I think they have one of the best late games nowadays, even if they have gold, because the Pierce Armor on the Hussar is great. The Cav Archers have always been great. Sidram, Bomber Cannon, Bomber Tower. Yeah, their late game is insane. And their only weakness is to those archer civs on like Arabia and some of these maps. And well, Turks, they get the extra pierce armor on the light cav and Hussars, so they can even deal with some of those archer civs in those ways. Not special on islands or hybrid maps, but they're pretty good on closed land maps, and they're pretty decent on most land maps in general. So C tier finish for Turks. You could make an argument for D tier, but I think they receive too many bonuses now or these days to make them a solid C tier finish. All right, bear with me, guys. Just another few minutes here as we tackle the last 4 civs. Remember, Burgundians and Sicilians are coming up. So we have Vietnamese now, and that's going to go straight to the B tier. I value Vietnamese really high, actually. I think Vietnamese are one of the civs that are a bit underrated right now. They have a really smooth economy. They have a really smooth transition between feudal to castle and to imp even. And then they have great options like Imperial Scrims for late game, Rattan Archers to counter a lot of the archer civs there. Siege is pretty mediocre, but I mean decent because you get Bombard Cannon. Light Cav is decent. You get full upgrades there, minus the Blast Furnace. Halbs is pretty decent. Mid-game crossbow skirm play is pretty decent. They're just decent and above average in so many things, and they feel super smooth to play that I put them at B tier, because if you think about it, they're great on most land maps. They're pretty decent on hybrid maps because you save wood, which is the most important resource there, on your economy upgrades. And the late game is often top notch as well. So yeah, and even on closed land maps like Arena, Viper loves them, for example. I'm starting to like them pretty well. Pretty good on some of the closed land maps as well. As I play more of them. So I don't know. It's a civ that impressed me a lot recently, and I like them. B tier for me. All right, last but not least of the non-DLC civs, we have the Vikings, which will go straight to the S tier. And let me get a swing of water, then explain why. Yeah, so Vikings S tier because they're fantastic on Arabia. Take away Chinese, and I think they become the best Arabia civ right now. They have some harder matchups like Vikings versus Britons, Vikings versus Aztec or Mayans. Not sure who wins there, but they have so many strong matchups on Arabia, and they're so easy to play. Like, you can't mess up Vikings. It's so hard to mess them up because of free wheelbarrow, free handcart's too good. And then the late game is really solid until the post-stimp, basically, where they start to fall off. But until then, there's so many chances to end the game. So on land maps, they're great. Water maps, they're pretty solid. Like islands, they're like top 3 right now. Might even be top 1 in certain people's opinion, although I think most people agree that Italians and Portuguese slightly edge out Vikings. And then on hybrid maps, they're pretty decent. They're only bad on hybrid maps when it comes to direct fire galley engagements, but they're so dominant on the other maps. They're even good on closed land maps in some cases with the strong boom. So, although they die to onagers, but they're so dominant on the maps that they are dominant on, like Arabia or like land maps and then like islands, that it has to be S tier for me. You could make an argument for A tier. It's not the most absurd thing, but from my experience, it's an easy S tier. And yeah, F tier is reserved for the new civilizations. I'm gonna have to put Sicilians in the F tier. I think Sicilians are completely terrible. They have no map that they're good on. They have a lot of bad matchups. They have nothing that's really strong about them. And their one thing that's like unique and good is the dungeon rush, but even that sucks. So it needs buff. Like there's no way to put it. There's no way around that fact. And then the one good thing the Sicilians are good at is the First Crusade, but even that's not enough to make them a strong civ in any map. So for me personally, at the top level, maybe they're not figured out yet, but Sicilians feel very underwhelming. Their tech tree sucks. Their options are pretty bad. They have to play infantry, which is like kind of like Goths, like one trick, and they do it even worse than Goths. So yeah, seems like F tier to me for Sicilians. You can win the odd game or two with them, but you'll never pick them in a tournament. So Sicilians are F tier, and Burgundians are D tier. Burgundians have some stuff going for them. They have pretty decent eco on those closed land maps. They have some good units on the land maps, like Castilla is still decent. Hand cannons having more damage is not bad. The cheaper Cavalier and Paladin and the Cavalier and Castle Age could be pretty good on certain land maps, but their hybrid map is terrible and their islands is terrible. So D tier for me. A little bit more competitive maybe than Sicilians in certain cases. But actually, even in hindsight, maybe even Sicilians should be D tier and Burgundians F tier. But anyways, bottom line rather, I should say, is that both of these civs are D or F tier. I would say Sicilians for F tier, Burgundians for D tier. But that's just a personal thing. I hate infantry civs in general. So yeah, there it is. And that's my tier list. So we're just getting up there to 45 minutes. Sorry if I was talking too fast at certain times. And sorry if I was kind of repeating myself in a lot of cases. I'm very exhausted now. It takes me a lot of energy to make these, but I hope you guys enjoyed them. And if you guys want to see any more tier lists, let me know when and which kind of tier list you want to see. And if you disagree with any of my picks, feel free to let me know in the comments below and let me know how your tier list would differ from mine. And as always, comment, like, subscribe, and do all that stuff. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.